Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the Office of the Institutional Review Board Town Hall for the ePortfolio. My name is Christina Blackman, and I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist for the Office of the IRB. Adam McClintock, the Director of the Office of the IRB, will be leading this presentation. But before he begins, I would like to go over a few things first. As you know, today's town hall is limited to 300 viewers. With that in mind, we are recording this town hall for other members of the research community that are not able to view today's presentation. This recording will be made available on the IRB website. We will send out an announcement using the IRB listserv or the Research Matters newsletter to let you know when it's available. Questions. We will have an opportunity at the end of the presentation to address any questions that you may have. Please use the Zoom chat feature to submit your questions. All questions that are submitted will be compiled as FAQs and will be posted on the Office of the IRB website. And now I'll turn it over to our director, Mr. Adam McClintock.
Thank you, Christina. So we'll just jump right into the session objective, what we hope to achieve this afternoon. We want to introduce what the concept of the ePortfolio is and how it's different from the current HSP, and discuss how it affects any research that might be ongoing or new projects that will come into fruition, and also outline the anticipated benefits we hope for the research community, which we hope to be many. So to begin, what you see here on the left side of the screen is the current HSP form used to submit for IRB review. It's a Word-based document, and it's just a document. What you see on the right side of the screen here is the IRB ePortfolio. As you can see, it's an electronic format, web-based. It has a left navigation pane, buttons, radio buttons, checkboxes, just more functionality than you can get out of a Word document. So what is the form? It's electronic. It's an electronic application that's web-based. You access it through an interface through IRAP. And it's really much more dynamic than what you get out of a Word document. So it's a smart form that creates a tailored application that is really unique to your specific submission. So the current HSP is a battery of questions on a Word document. You have to work through them, read them, decide if you need to answer that question or not, or how to answer it. Whereas this smart form, really, it takes your responses to question and presents you with the questions that are only most pertinent to your project, in a similar way that TurboTax does when completing your tax returns. So it replaces the HSP and numerous ancillary Microsoft Word documents, and it gives you a single integrated electronic form. So I think at last count it replaced 13 Word-based documents, so that you don't have to keep track of those separately, upload them separately, complete them separately. Again, it's a dynamic form that will be upgraded regularly. We shoot to have quarterly upgrades that will be based on user feedback. We have a forum to generate consistent user feedback from the research community, PIs, research staff, from IRB members and IRB staff. So, there are a lot of things we know that we still want to upgrade, that we will get into a future upgrade. Things that, suggestions we got from the research community, user testers, things like that we just, we couldn't integrate all of those into the form before go live, but we've already got a battery of things that we want to upgrade. So getting your feedback as you go along is crucial to keeping that form continuously improving and being most responsive to the research community. Next, it utilized the IRAP system as it was designed to be used, and that it is a true electronic interface. and it's not uploading Word documents to an electronic system. And it reduces some duplicate administrative work. And, you know, I can't emphasize that enough. From the IRB side, when you complete your Word application, there's somebody, actually three people on the IRB staff who are entirely dedicated to translating your responses from the Word document to the IREP system. Whereas with this e-form, when you enter your responses into the e-form, it will be automatically translated into the system. So that removes that extra step on the IRB side. And so what that allows for is more flexibility in how we utilize our staff, so that we can, you know, reallocate their efforts to more value-added things, to be more responsive to you, to provide a more responsive process, and ultimately reduce turnaround times. So how does this affect new and ongoing research? So on August 28th, that's next Friday, the ePortfolio will be live and available in the system for submission of new protocols. At that time, there will also be e-forms for the amendment form and the continuing reviews that will be integrated with the ePortfolio, so that when you complete those types of submissions, it'll be dynamic in that it can, the information in the ePortfolio and the information entered into the amendment and continuing review can communicate back and forth between those two forms, so that for studies submitted on the ePortfolio, you will always have a currently up-to-date version of what your study is in the application form. And you won't have to piece it together through the HSP and amendments and you know, follow the history. It'll be right there in a single form. For protocols that were initiated on the HSP, so there is no ePortfolio in existence, there will be standalone e-forms to submit amendments and continuing reviews for those submissions. On September 30th, that will be the date that we will no longer accept the HSP submission. So we understand that there are likely submissions being prepared right now on the HSP that are in process and not yet ready to submit. So we don't want all of that work to go to waste. So we'll continue to accept those forms until September 30th, at which point we will necessitate the ePortfolio for new submissions. And then on November 30th, similarly, we understand that there are amendments and continuing reviews likely in process that perhaps aren't ready for submission, waiting on sponsors, waiting on input from others before submission. So we will continue to accept the current PRAF and IPR form for amendments and continuing reviews until November 30th. So what are the anticipated benefits? On the left side here, you'll see the HSP, the current HSP, features of that, and then those that we hope to enhance based on the ePortfolio. So with the human subjects protocol, you have a static form, you have a battery of questions. Again, you go through each question, or at least have to read it to figure out if you respond to it or you don't respond to it, how to respond to it. Whereas the ePortfolio, based on how you respond to the questions, it will guide the preceding questions to present those that are only relevant to your project. On the HSP, there are a lot of open-ended questions. So free text boxes, things that you have to fill in and come up with the answer yourself. With the ePortfolio, we've looked at the questions and determined which ones have common responses. So we've developed standardized questions. So a lot of drop downs, check boxes, radio buttons, things that have a finite set of responses to the extent possible, and then reserve the open-ended questions, the free text boxes, things like that, for those responses that are really going to be very study by study, such as the risk-benefit ratio, things of that nature. In the HSP, at last count, I believe the ratio of open-ended questions to standardized questions was like 65 to 35. whereas the ePortfolio flips that on its head. So you have more along the lines of 30 to 40% of free text and 60 to 65% standardized questions. So we hope that allows for easier responses and communication of information to and from the researchers to the IRB. The HSP model that we use now has submission-specific applications. So there's an application for the human, for the not human subjects request, for exempt requests, and then also for requests for review by the IRB. So the ePortfolio, based on the branching logic, has a universal application form for all of those different submission types. So, for example, if you submit a request for not human subjects determination and is actually exempt, you don't have to go download and complete a separate application. You just step back and respond to the questions that are also relevant to the other level of review. So we hope that saves some time in triaging when trying to decide what application to submit, and it saves time if it ends up being a different review pathway. With the HSP, there are numerous supplemental forms, such as the special populations forms, the waiver requests, and quite a few others, drugs, devices. So you have to go and download those forms, complete them separately, sometimes guess if you have to complete a certain form or not. Whereas in the ePortfolio, these forms are all integrated into the smart form logic. So the questions guide you to those forms, and you don't have to guess whether or not you need to download the form. You don't have to keep track of the separate form. It's all right there in one form. So this is one, if you can't tell, that I'm particularly excited about. The HSP, again, is a Word form where your responses need to be manually transferred from the Word document to the IRAP system by IRB staff. We've currently got 3 FTEs dedicated almost entirely to just that type of work. Well, with the ePortfolio, when you complete those questions, enter that information into the system, it's in the system. So again, we can take those FTEs and rededicate them to more value-added processes that can be more responsive to your needs and the needs of the research community. This is a fan favorite, document naming conventions. Based on the way documents are currently stored in the IRAP system, and the way we access them in the system, there can be scores of documents for a given submission. So you've got the HSP, the supplemental forms, you potentially track changes version of forms, any number of different consent forms. It's not uncommon to have 30, 40, 50, even over 100 forms in a single submission. And for the IRB staff and the IRB members to recognize what they're looking at and be able to navigate those forms in a reasonable manner, we've developed a naming convention, a standard naming convention system. It can be cumbersome from the researcher perspective, difficult to keep up with. Well, the way we access the forms in the ePortfolio is we interface with the forms directly through the web interface, the ePortfolio form. So it eliminates the need for naming conventions. So with the HSP, those were essentially the application forms we used when we had a paper-based model where we had stacks of paper coming in through the office, and the workflow was developed based on paper, shifting paper from desk to desk, from office to office. And I've experienced this at other institutions as well. When you go from a truly paper-based form to one that's quasi-electronic, but you're still using the same paper forms, it can be difficult to redesign your workflows because you're still using the same application forms. Whereas with the ePortfolio, we've now got a truly electronic integrated system, submission system, so that we could take our workflows, not only those related to the e-form, but those that we've we've worked with over the years, took a hard look at those and spent at least as much time looking at our workflows as we did with the forms development to figure out if we're doing things the way we would do, figuring what for through now, but we know the system a little better, and then also taking advantage of some of the features of the system in a way that paper forms won't allow. So we've done a lot with our workflows to be more responsive and ideally have a streamlined process that results in more timely submissions and approvals. With that, I will turn it back over to Christina. It looks like we have plenty of time for questions.
Yes, thank you, Adam. So if you do have questions based on what you've learned so far, please enter them in the Zoom chat. We're prepared to maybe get some during the presentation, but we'd love to take this opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, I see the first question is, did UAB build the ePortfolio system or buy the software from a vendor, perhaps with some customization?
I'll go ahead and take that one. So the IRB system is from a commercial vendor, and we were able to partner with another institution who has the same commercial vendor, who uses the same commercial vendor, and we were able to tailor their eForm and tailor it to UAB's needs. So it's the form itself is one that's been used successfully elsewhere. And we were able to, fortunately, use that as the foundation for our form.
Okay. Another question is, can multiple work on the same form at the same time? I'm assuming they're asking if it can be submitted at the same time. Can multiple work on the same form at the same time?
Or can multiple people work in the form at the same time, perhaps?
No, multiple people cannot work in the same form at the same time.
How would department scientific review form work? Is that electronic, or will it be still submitted on paper form on paper form on IRB?
At this point, the scientific review process will happen the same as it is now. So for those departments that use PORF, that process will be the same process now, which will be uploaded into the ePortfolio. There's a possibility we could automate that a little more with future upgrades. That's one of the things in our thought process to address with a future upgrade.
Next question is, can we wait until the form goes live to submit?
This is Andrew again. If you have a pending submission, you can wait until the form goes live to submit if you'd like. Alternatively, you could go ahead and complete the HSP and submit it as is.
Okay, next question. Please, can you show the timeline again? Next question. Will PI signature be required on the portfolio?
No, it will not be required.
Will the ePersonnel form be integrated into the ePortfolio?
The ePersonnel form will remain on a separate form. It will be easier to submit personnel amendments and keep track with personnel that way rather than have it integrated within the ePortfolio.
Okay, I believe there's clarification to an earlier question. Can multiple people work on the same form, not at the same time? I guess, is that access related?
Yeah, correct. Multiple people cannot work on the same form at the same time. Multiple people can work on the form, they just can't do it at the same time. You would run the risk of overriding some changes.
So, and I guess there's clarification that the PI does not have to sign the HSP or continuing review.
That is correct. The PI does not have to sign the HSP or continuing review.
Another question along the same lines of signature. Does the chair of the department need to sign a prof?
Again, the scientific review process will continue to be to go through the same process that it has with the current HSP process. Any documentation that you currently submit with the HSP would just be uploaded to the ePortfolio.
Will this apply to any changes in the consent, or will we still need to submit a clean and tracked consent for any amendment?
This will, you'll still need to provide a clean and track change copy of revised documents, but the form has a table that clearly there's a place to upload those in the form, both the clean and track side by side.
Had another question. Will the PI be notified that the HSP or continuing review has been submitted?
Yes, the PI will receive a confirmation email that they have submitted a protocol.
There's a question regarding student researchers. How will this new approach work for student researchers for thesis and their dissertations?
I'm not sure that it shouldn't change really anything for that process. They would just use the HS or the ePortfolio instead of the HSP or the exempt application. So it shouldn't change anything with regards to student researchers if they're conducting human subject research.
Another question regarding ancillary approvals for such as infection control. Are those approvals, will they still require paper uploads?
Yes.
Yes, anything, any ancillary approval that's not the IRB, again, will still follow the same processes they always have. We would just upload those documents to the ePortfolio.
Okay, there's a clarification question on actual studies will use the ePortfolio.
That is correct.
And also, how will the process of submitting a response to IRB questions on the HSP change?
So you will still receive an administrative pre-review letter. It'll look a little bit different. It will be in a table format, but you will go into the application if there's any changes requested to the ePortfolio, and you'll make those changes to the ePortfolio, and you can upload the response document within the ePortfolio in an attachment section, and along with any other documents that might have had requested changes.
Will there be a database that could be analyzed by researchers to measure the benefit of the IRB? For example, could adverse events be related to the design of a study, sample size, etc.?
That is not something that's within the scope of the ePortfolio that's currently been designed.
Will the protocol approval be hastened due to this online platform?
Yeah, and that's the hope that this will provide a much more streamlined process for the research community as well as the IRB staff, so that we can use our time more productively to ultimately result in quicker turnaround times.
Okay, we have a question. Will there be a single document to recapitulate the original HSP as well as subsequent amendments, the allowing a clear current description of the approved study?
So going forward, once if you've submitted your initial application on the ePortfolio, that form will be updated at each amendment, and that will be your single form. So the ePortfolio is replacing the HSP, and it will be a living document that's updated each time.
Okay. Will documents that have to be submitted require a naming convention?
They will not. That's one of the key benefits here. The naming conventions were primarily used to help IRB members and IRB staff sort out what they're opening and what they're reviewing. Whereas these ePortfolio, the other forms will be uploaded directly into the interface, and we will access them through the interface. So there will be clear indication what they are. So there won't be that need. There won't be that need to have specific naming conventions.
Okay. Is there a save feature where you can start the HSP form and come back to it later before submitting? Is there a feature that lets you print out the HSP form as a document?
Yes. So there's a save button at the top of the ePortfolio. I would advise to click it often to make sure that you don't lose any work. And it is very easy to print it out as a document. You can click PDF and we'll save a PDF and you can print it out.
Will there be any change for the consent uploads?
Consent forms will be uploaded within the ePortfolio. So the only change is that where you're uploading them. And the form will clearly show you where you need to upload it.
Who have access to one study using the ePortfolio?
The PI and their delegates, and anyone listed on the protocol.
Okay. Currently, when changes need to be made to the HSP or with amendments or IRB request changes, will we have to be able to edit and change the HSP with the changes rather than starting over? The same for consent form.
The ePortfolio, you'll be able to edit that in the contents of it, so you won't have to start completely afresh. As I mentioned earlier, the amendment form will be integrated with the ePortfolio. So when you make those changes and request those changes in the amendment, it'll open up the ePortfolio to make those corresponding changes, and no, you will not have to start over. The consent form actually will not be it will not be in an e-form format. It will still be in a Word format that you'll upload. So you would still make those changes to the consent form the same as you would now.
There's a question on who would make modifications to the form.
Anyone on the study can, along with the PI's delegates.
Okay, there's a question, will we need to set up new delegates or will those already in IRAP carry forward to the ePortfolio?
Your existing delegates will remain the same.
Will there be any guidance when choosing exempt or expedited categories as we begin the portfolio?
Yes, there's one of the first pages in the form gives some guidance on what to choose, and when you answer those questions accordingly, it will guide you down the right path to complete the right application questions. Many of the questions are going to be the same whether you're going for exempt, expedited, or not HEMA subjects. But yes, the form will help guide you in that direction, in the right direction.
So thank you for providing your questions. Your questions will be compiled as an FAQ and will be posted on the Office of the IRB website next week or sooner. Next, as you can probably tell, we're excited about the launch of the IRB ePortfolio. We encourage each of you to attend one of the 3 IRB ePortfolio training sessions that we're offering this week and next. To register for a session date and time that best fits your schedule, please visit the UAB campus LMS system and search for pre-launch training for the IRB ePortfolio. As we previously mentioned, this recording will be made available on the IRB website. We will send out an announcement using the IRB listserv or the Research Matters newsletter to let you know when it is available. If there aren't any other questions, thank you again for attending the IRB Town Hall, and we hope that everyone has a great week.